I work as a librarian at a public library. It's not a very thrilling job, but it's peaceful and quiet. I usually work the night shift, from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Most of the time, it's pretty lonely and monotonous. I just check the books, organize the shelves, and read some novels. But sometimes things get creepy. Like last night, for example, it was around 2 a.m. and I was in the basement where the old and rare books were stored. There were no other employees or patrons in the library except for the security guard who was in the front desk. I was looking for a book that a customer had requested when I heard a whisper. It sounded like someone was calling my name. I looked around and saw that no one was there. I thought it was strange, but I shrugged it off. I continued to search for the book, scanning the titles on the shelves. I heard the whisper again. This time, it was louder and clearer. It said, "Come here. I have something to show you." I felt a chill run down my spine. Who was that? And where were they? I decided to ignore it and keep looking for the book. But then, I heard another whisper. It said, "Don't be afraid. I won't hurt you." I felt a surge of fear and curiosity. Who was this? And what did they want? I decided to follow the voice and see who it was. But before I could do that, I heard another whisper. It said, "Turn around." I did as it said, and I wished I hadn't. Behind me, there was a figure standing in the shadows. It looked like a man, but not quite. He had pale skin, sunken eyes, and sharp teeth. He had long nails, ragged clothes, and a book in his hand. He smiled at me and said in a raspy voice, "Hello there. I've been waiting for you." He was holding the book that I was looking for. He was the book that I was looking for. He was the Necronomicon, the Book of the Dead. He opened it and showed me its pages. They were filled with blood and bones. He said, "Do you want to read it? It has some interesting stories." He moved closer to me and whispered in my ear, "Stories about you." I was shopping at Walmart on a Saturday night, looking for some Halloween decorations. I noticed a man in a clown costume walking around the store, holding a large plastic bag. He seemed to be looking for something, but I didn't pay much attention to him. I thought he was just another customer who was dressed up for the occasion. I found some fake spider webs and pumpkins and headed to the checkout line. As I was waiting, I saw the clown again. He was standing behind me, holding his bag close to his chest. He smiled at me and said, "Hey, nice decorations. Do you like clowns?" I felt a chill run down my spine. I didn't like clowns at all, especially not ones who looked like they came out of a horror movie. His face was painted white, with red lips and nose and black circles around his eyes. His hair was bright green and curly, and he wore a red and yellow striped suit with oversized shoes. I tried to act polite and said, "Not really. Sorry." He frowned and said, "Oh, that's too bad. I love clowns. They make me laugh. Do you want to see what's in my bag?" I shook my head and said, "No, thank you. I'm good." He shrugged and said, suit yourself. But you're missing out on a lot of fun." He then opened his bag and pulled out a severed human head. He held it up in front of me and said, "Da, da." I screamed and dropped my items. The head had blood dripping from its neck and mouth, and its eyes were wide open and staring at me. It looked like it had been cut off recently, maybe even in the store. The clown laughed maniacally and said, "Isn't it hilarious? It's my latest prank. I've been collecting heads from different Walmarts all over the state. You should see the reactions I get from people. They're priceless." He then threw the head at me and ran away, leaving me in shock and horror. I heard other screams and saw other customers running away from him. He had more heads in his bag, and he was throwing them at random people. I grabbed my phone and called 911, hoping that the police would catch him before he killed anyone else. I was terrified that he would come back for me. That was the worst night of my life. This is a true story that happened in Florida in 2023. The clown was later identified as John Wayne Gacy Jr., a notorious serial killer who had escaped from prison. He was captured by the police after a chase that ended in a shootout. He had killed 14 people in his spree. I used to work as a security guard at a hospital. I was assigned to the night shift from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. My job was to patrol the premises, check the doors and windows, and monitor the CTF cameras. It was a boring and lonely job, but I didn't mind it. One night, I was doing my usual rounds when I heard a strange noise coming from the basement. It sounded like someone was banging on a metal door. I thought it might be one of the maintenance workers, or maybe a patient who had wandered off. I decided to check it out. I took the elevator down to the basement and followed the sound of the banging. It led me to a door that was marked morgue. I had never been inside the morgue before, and I felt a chill run down my spine. I wondered who would be banging on the door of the morgue at this hour. I opened the door and stepped inside. The room was dark and cold and smelled of death. There were rows of metal drawers that contained the bodies of the deceased. There was also a table with a sheet covering something. The banging noise was coming from one of the drawers. It was shaking violently, as if someone was trying to get out. I felt a surge of fear and curiosity. I walked over to the drawer and pulled it open. To my horror, I saw a woman's face staring back at me. She had pale skin, sunken eyes, and blood dripping from her mouth. She looked like she had been dead for days, but she was alive. She opened her mouth and let out a loud scream. I screamed too and slammed the drawer shut. I ran out of the morgue and back to the elevator. I pressed the button for the ground floor, hoping to get away from that nightmare. But the elevator didn't move. Instead, it started to go up. It stopped at the 4th floor where the psychiatric ward was located. The doors opened, and I saw a group of people standing in front of me. They were all wearing white gowns and had blank expressions on their faces. They looked like zombies. They slowly walked towards me, reaching out their hands. I realized they were patients who had escaped from their rooms. They had somehow taken over the ward and killed the staff. They were looking for more victims. I tried to close the elevator doors, but they were too fast. They grabbed me and dragged me out of the elevator. They surrounded me and started to bite and scratch me. I felt their teeth and nails tearing into my flesh. I felt their blood mixing with mine. I felt their madness infecting me. I screamed for help, but no one came. This is a true story that happened in New York in 2023. The hospital was later shut down after an investigation revealed that there was a virus outbreak that caused some of the patients and staff to become violent and cannibalistic. The virus was traced back to a corpse that was brought in from a foreign country. The security guard was one of the victims who died from the infection. I was working as a cashier at Target on a busy afternoon. I had been dealing with a lot of rude and impatient customers, but I tried to keep a smile on my face and do my job. I was scanning the items of a woman who had a cart full of groceries and clothes. She seemed nice enough until I told her the total. "That can't be right," she said, looking at the screen. "That's way too much." I checked the receipt and said, "No, ma'am, that's the correct amount. You have a lot of items here." She shook her head and said, No, you must have scanned something wrong. Check again." I sighed and said, "Okay, I'll check again." I started to scan the items again, one by one, while she watched me closely. She kept pointing out things that she claimed were on sale or had coupons for, but I didn't see any signs or tags that indicated that. She also argued with me about the prices of some items, saying they were cheaper at another store. I tried to be polite and explain to her that I couldn't change the prices or honor other stores' deals, but she wouldn't listen. She just kept complaining and accusing me of overcharging her. The line behind her was getting longer and longer, and I could see the other customers getting annoyed and restless. I wished someone would come and help me, but all the other cashiers were busy too. Finally, after scanning all the items again, I told her the new total. It was exactly the same as before. She looked at me with disbelief and anger and said, "This is ridiculous. You're trying to rip me off. I want to speak to your manager." I pressed the button to call for a manager and said, "Okay, Mom, I'll get my manager for you. But I assure you, this is the correct amount." She snorted and said, "Don't lie to me. You're just trying to cover up your mistake. You're incompetent and dishonest. You should be fired." She then proceeded to insult me and my intelligence, using words that I won't repeat here. She also threw some of her items at me, hitting me in the face and chest. I felt tears sting my eyes, but I tried to hold them back. I felt humiliated and hurt by her words and actions. The manager arrived and asked what was going on. The woman told him her version of the story, which was full of lies and exaggerations. She demanded that he fire me and give her a discount. The manager looked at me and asked for my side of the story. I told him the truth, showing him the receipt and the items. He nodded and said, "I'm sorry for the trouble, Mom, but our cashier is right. This is the correct amount. We can't change the prices or match other stores' deals. If you don't want to pay for these items, you can leave them here." The woman was furious. She screamed at him and called him names too. She said she would never shop at Target again and that she would sue us for fraud. She then grabbed her purse and stormed out of the store, leaving behind her cart full of items. The manager apologized to me and asked if I was okay. He said he would take care of the mess and that I could take a break. I thanked him and walked away from the register. I went to the bathroom and locked myself in a stall. I finally let out the tears that I'd been holding back. That was the worst day of my life. This is a true story that happened in California in 2023. The woman was later identified as Karen Smith, a notorious scammer who had been banned from several stores for similar behavior. She was arrested by the police after they found out she had stolen several credit cards from other customers.